Good evening. This is Monday night, November 23rd, 2020. This is the Norwood Planning Board meeting. It's held remotely via GoToMeeting. It's 7 p.m. and we're off and running. We're at various locations for the different members here in town. Okay. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the 11/9 meeting. Has anybody got any questions on those minutes, or if so, please let us know. And if not, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes as filed. And I have a second.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Unanimous. Call the roll. Mr. Bamber.
Aye.
Mr. Patrickowski.
Aye.
Mr. Hatchie.
Aye.
Mr. Sheehan.
Aye.
And the chairman is aye, 5-0. Okay. Minor site plan approval for a sign for Fuego Burritos and Bowls. 643 Washington Street, Norwood, Mass. The business owner is Sao and it's the Reedus.
Yep, so we have a minor sign site plan approval for Fuego Burrito and Bowls at 643 Washington Street. The sign itself is being proposed as having a black background with white vinyl letters. Looking at the dimensions of the sign, and as just a measurable area, it comes out to around 17.7 square feet. So obviously when we measure signs, we don't measure the whole entire sign, we measure what can be defined within a measurable distance of just the lettering itself. And so for the lettering itself, that's where we get 17.717 square feet. The applicant is also proposing to have 2 window signs within our downtown according to section 6.2.14.3 need to be 30% of a particular window panel's square footage. So these coming in at around 6.9%. I would say that those are well within that 30% maximum for square footage of a window sign. So both the primary wall sign as well as the window signs are compliant with our sign zoning bylaws within section 6.2. For that reasoning, I would recommend approval. The business owner, Tasso, is here if anyone has any questions.
He is here. Who would like to speak? Anybody? On his application, he notes that the letters are plastic, not vinyl. Does that make any difference, Patrick?
No, yeah. So I think it was so it's a PVC, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tasso. So it's a aluminum background with PVC press on top of that.
It's a 1/2-inch raised PVC lettering.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so the sign at the business next to him, Chefin' and Eatin' at the Cakery, it's a similar size sign. So I think that kind of matches in general as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? Can I get a motion to accept as presented?
Joe, can you state your name when you motion?
Say again?
I was just saying, so in the future, when we do a motion, you just state your name instead of just raising the hand, just so we can hear it for clarity.
Joe Sheehan, make a motion to accept, approve.
And a second?
Second.
And Ernie seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? For the roll, Mr. Bamber,
Aye.
Mr. Patrickowski,
Aye.
Mr. Sheehan,
Aye.
Mr. Hatchie,
Aye.
Mr. Poro, the chairman, is an aye, so it's 5-0. Thank you.
All right, so, sorry, Tasso, I'm not sure if I can pronounce your last name very well. But so basically what will happen is I'll write up an approval letter. Paul will sign it, Paul, the director, and a copy of that is given to you as well as the building department. And from there, you take that, you need that letter when you go and just finalize your building permitting.
Okay, sounds
If you
good.
have any questions on that, just give me a call.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you all.
No problem. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Looking forward to it. We need a good burrito place.
Agreed.
Yes,
We have.
How
Solar.
about heroes? You making heroes too?
Mhm.
what's that?
Heroes? No?
We're sticking to burritos with this one.
Uh,
When do you open, by the way?
As soon as I get everything in order, I'm hoping by the new year.
Okay.
All right.
well, Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda at 7:10 is approval not required plan for 23 Monroe Street. Assessors map 4, sheet 14C, lot 49A. Christine Visco is the applicant. Christopher Charlton is from Continental Land Survey LLC.
Everyone see that?
Yes. So what are we doing here? I'm not too clear on that.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the project surveyor is not here, but the owners, Kim, is present to answer any questions about this A&R plan. Kim contacted me about a month ago and asked me whether or not, asked me about the process for her neighbor who's selling their property to convey a small area of land to their property. I looked at it closely. Kim's property is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. I believe it's non-conforming with respect to frontage and land area. However, adding a piece of land to a lot that's non-conforming for land area doesn't make it any more non-conforming and is therefore allowed by zoning. I've reviewed this plan and I recommend that it be approved. I didn't see any issues. Kim can answer any questions you have or provide any additional explanation the board may need.
And the purpose of deeding this to a neighbor is for what purpose?
Yep. So when we did an addition in 2011, we realized at the time that that piece of land encroached a little bit upon our driveway and our shed. And so the neighbors had agreed to, when they were getting ready to sell the house, that they would sell us that little bit of parcel to eliminate that problem. And it also gave us the 15-foot setback if we wanted to add on a little bit to our kitchen on that side to make it even with our deck. So that little parcel would allow for that 15-foot setback as well.
So what is the overall new square footage going to be?
672 square feet.
So really, the only thing non-conforming is the frontage, Paul, right? At this point, because we're going to end up at 23,500 square feet.
Yeah, I think it's just a frontage and that they're there for the area. I think it's 10,000 in that district. So, yeah, I think it's just a frontage.
Thank you. Christine, Kimberly, anything else you want to add?
No, other than when we were doing our homework and we talked to the assessor's office and they had said that anything under 1,000 square feet wasn't going to impact the value or assessment of either property.
Okay,
Basically, it wouldn't change anything.
basically, thank you. Anybody from the board have any questions? Ernie?
I'm really looking at this thing and maybe it's just bad eyes. But the piece that's you're putting onto your property is where? I got lot 2, lot 1A.
It looks like a long rectangle right in the middle.
So
It's
if,
shown as,
Yep.
it's shown as parcel 1B on the plan.
All right, parcel 1B. And it looks like a solid line, and then next to it, there's a dotted line very close to it. So it's that piece.
Oh,
You're
okay.
lot 2, you are lot 2A, right?
yes,
No, we're-
lot two.
Ernie, the
Lot
dotted
2,
line
yes.
is a
I'm
fence.
sorry, lot 2. So that piece is being attached to lot 2 now.
Yes,
1B will now be part of lot 2.
yes.
The dotted line is a fence, Ernie.
All right. And then that runs all the way down to Monroe.
Oh, okay. That's.
Yeah.
So it's not being combined with 1A.
No, 1A is part of,
Somebody else's.
The neighbor that's moving.
yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so they have a very deep lot, but it's non-built, I mean, they can't get back there.
Okay,
All right, as long as that's what I couldn't for the life of me figure it out, but I see now 1B, okay. Thank you.
okay. Mr. Sheehan?
Just one question. It'll just be 2 large lots at the end of this transaction.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. If you're all ready, I will be ready to make a motion if you'd like to approve.
But let me just see if Brian has anything he wants to
Okay.
add in. Robert?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question, and I don't think it affects the plan. I'm just curious. Is that little rectangular piece of property that's being added to lot 2, is that going to be held back as an easement for the use of the buyers of the main property, or in other words, is this just an ownership thing, or is there going to be an easement where they gain use of it?
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, we're not gonna do anything with it.
We're not even gonna
Sure.
move the fence.
Yeah, we're not doing anything with it, it's just so that,
So that what's on our side of the fence, we actually will own now.
Got you. All right. I have no.
It'll be a much,
else.
it'd be a much bigger party deck, that's all. Okay. Mr. Sheehan, you willing to make that motion, sir?
I will make a motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed, unanimous. For the record, for the roll, Mr. Bamber.
Aye.
Mr. Petrikowski,
Aye.
Mr. Sheehan,
Aye.
Mr. Hatchie,
Aye.
and the chairman is an aye, 5-0. It's been approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. The next one is 7:20. We're close enough. Start our discussion of open launch storage of motor vehicles.
Mr. Chairman, at our last meeting, we held a public hearing on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to regulate open lot storage of vehicles. And the board understood that the amendment would only allow for that use within the proposed new Boston Providence Highway District. It would prohibit the use in all other districts, and it would require a special permit from the planning board. The board had some reservations, Ernie had some reservations, and it led to some discussion. And a lot of that discussion focused on what would the consequences be for the Vanderbilt office park area. If this use is one of the only areas that allow for open lot vehicle storage, the board raised some concerns about that area turning into a larger open lot storage area that would have more than one of these lots. And as a result of that discussion, the board decided that it was best to continue that public hearing without taking any action, to provide some time for the board members to think about this and decide what you wanted to do. The hearing was continued to our next meeting on December 7th, but Pat and I thought it would be a good idea to provide some time for the board to discuss the matter before we return to the public hearing. Following that meeting, Selectman Hajar sent an email to the board members with a recommended approach to address that concern. And I believe you all got a copy of that email. So that kind of sets the table for this discussion. I believe that this is a policy matter for the planning board to decide whether or not you want to continue to allow open lot vehicle storage. And if so, where do you want that to take place?
Thank you, Paul. Well, you know, we've got a couple of lots down there that have been taken up with vehicles on temporary, quote unquote, temporary storage. Okay. And I think this was going to address the issue of temporary being the new permanent. And I don't feel it's the highest and best use of the territory there. And the other thing we were talking about is maybe further back on the parcels that are there. And I don't see why, you know, we would want them up front and in viable space, if you will. And that's where I'm coming from in the discussion. And that would leave it with the special request from the special permission from the planning board. And right now, it would be an N in the table of uses as no. Joe, you want to jump in? Let us,
I just wanted to say that that whole new corridor, we've said we want to, what started all this, a lot of this was to get it out of the neighborhoods. We know that one of the last big items was when they wanted to park cars down South Norwood. And I think that's what really started us looking at this and saying, look, this is the auto mile. It's a mile long, not a mile wide. We want to keep it around Route 1. Now, given that, the Vanderbilt area is quite different from a lot of Route 1. It actually goes in quite deep, deeper than most other places. So on one hand, it might be odd to take it out of the mix, but on the other, we really do want to do, as you say, get the best use out of it. And if we were to do something special there and put the car somewhere, certainly it would be more toward the back, like you say. So that I could agree upon. If we were going to let him in that area, perhaps we could change it so it's not, those cars would not be parked right up front, but certainly more to the back.
Mr. Patrickowski.
Joe, I'll ask you in a second what you mean by the back. So I've been giving this some thought since our last meeting, and I'd like to kind of go back to the original setup of the bylaw. We have a lot of car dealerships down there. I don't want to, the more I thought about it, I don't want to just outright ban it. I think it's a little unfair to the car dealers. I want to be fair. I want to be fair to the town and control it, but I want to be fair to the dealers who need this for their inventory, for the sales. I understand, how that business works now with, nobody orders cars anymore. You got to have it or the guy's going to go someplace else. So I'd like to go back to the original bylaw, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul and Patrick, on this, where we were going to allow it on Route 1, but not on the street. If you follow me, it was going to be in the back of the lots. I'm going back thinking that way, going back to allowing the parking garages, again, all by special permit now. This is all going to be planning board special permit. Nothing is given here. But I appreciate Dave's letter, and I read it, and I kind of agree with him on Vanderbilt to the front on Route 1, the same as any other part of Route 1. I disagree a little bit. I don't want to set up a second district. I think that's just adding another layer or another district. I think we can do it. I don't know how we do it. I think we keep it the way we take the frontage of Vanderbilt the same way we would take the frontage of Newbury Comics or any other place on the Route 1 corridor. And if we can designate the parcels that it's allowed, I don't know, and I'm going to turn it over to Paul and Pat to figure it out. But obviously, we don't want the entire Vanderbilt to become a car lot, and it could very easily become that. I could see it becoming that real fast. But I don't want to just disband it. I think I'd like to go back and look at the original bylaw again, and what we allow in front of Newbury Comics and in front of Jack Madden's, in front of the Iron Horse, we allow in front of Vanderbilt, but not put the parcels in the back. So Joe, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by allowed in the back. Again, I want to be fair to the dealers, but we can't just open up all of Vanderbilt. I mean, I think that if we stick to the initial bylaw, the way Ted had set it up, I think we can work it out. Now, I don't know if I'm off base on that, and Paul, I'm gonna flip it back to you to see if we can parcel it on Vanderbilt, where the front parcels are allowed, but they have to go by the bylaw. They can't put it on Route 1. It has to be behind the businesses, behind the commercial. So is that something that we can do more of that hybrid, as Dave put in his letter, where we, on Vanderbilt, we go by parcel to parcel?
Thank you, Ernie. I want to back up a little bit and explain that currently, as it stands today, there's only one zoning district that allows open lot storage of vehicles, and that's in the manufacturing zone.
Oh, we're getting rid of that.
The bylaw amendment that I wrote says that the use is prohibited in all the zoning districts except the Boston Providence Highway District. That's the hearing that will continue on December 7th.
I agree with you there.
The Boston Providence Highway zoning amendment, as you guys mentioned earlier, it requires open lot storage of vehicles to be offset from the frontage of any properties fronting on Route 1. And I believe open lot storage has to be like 100 feet back from the road. It also allows for the construction of parking garages to store those vehicles in some sort of structured parking. But again, that also has to be set back 100 feet from the road. The Boston Providence Highway District focuses on placing commercial type businesses on the road, mixed use type buildings that should have commercial on the first floor and residential above, along the frontage of Route 1 in those areas shown on the zoning map with a red line running along the frontage. The challenge that it seems as though we do have a consensus, and that is nobody really wants to allow more open lot storage of vehicles in the Vanderbilt area, because there's a concern that that could cause a cascade of additional applications, and we could have more than the one that's currently there. And so what I think we need to do is, as David had just suggested, talk to our consultant and see what we can do to prevent that from happening in the Vanderbilt area. And what I'm thinking of, while not creating a Boston Providence Highway District 2, but somehow putting a line on the zoning map that runs along the back lot line of those commercial properties in the Vanderbilt Park area. So between Park Place, what used to be Moore Street Extension, and Vanderbilt Ave, that area would go one lot deep only to allow for that auto storage use. But beyond that, into the Vanderbilt area, that use would be prohibited. So I think that if we were to add one paragraph to the existing bylaw, which states that open lot storage in the Boston Providence Highway District is only allowed along the frontage lots in that front on the Vanderbilt Park, and that anything beyond that back lot line, open lot storage is not allowed, that we could try to manage to accomplish our goals by handling it that way.
Exactly, Paul. Just the way I wanted to say it, Paul. Exactly. That was it. Perfectly.
So
Have it
you're
along the front, but not in the back.
Paul's work all along here, Ernie?
What's that?
You've been writing Paul's work all along here?
Yeah, I'm the speechwriter.
Thank you very much, Paul. Ernie, thank you. Anybody else like to share some wisdom with this, please? Robert?
I have nothing to add. I just, I like what Paul had to say there. I like David's idea. It's basically what we're trying, aimed at what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. So sounds good so far.
Thank you. Brian, do you want to interject here?
Oh, I agree. As others have said, Paul summarized, I think, our consensus rather well. I do share David's concern about the Vanderbilt area, and I think there'll have to be some real thought process as to where in that area the lots, the bulk automobile storage can take place. But I share the concern, and I believe that Paul described it nicely, that in the corridor, with the frontage being reserved for commercial use or possibly commercial with residential above, is the objective here. And I think that anything that comes before us will be looking through that lens, and I agree.
Thank you. Anyone else like to add anything here? And I think we've worked with Paul and with Pat between now and December 7th, and with the consultant to kind of firm up thoughts that we just threw out here. And then we see the update that we can get maybe a week before, Paul, the meeting, so we can have a chance to look at it.
Yes, I believe Selectman Hajar had his hand up, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, he's not on my screen. I didn't see him. Mr. Hajar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just be echoing what everyone has said. And I think what brought this to the forefront is when Paul accurately explained that since we had so much of Vanderbilt, the area inside the Highway Business District, that if you approved it, then it becomes permanent anywhere inside that Highway Business District. So I think that's why you want to separate the front part, which is its intended use of allowing possible either garages or open lot storage, versus the back part, which we don't want to see a bunch of those lots utilized, and then they become permanent. They're not by special permit, and they wouldn't even be grandfathered. They would just be allowed. So I think that's Paul accurately displayed or talked about that issue last meeting. So I love the solution being proposed. So I hope it works, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Mr. Sheehan.
For Paul, I just had a question. How deep would they be able to go? Are we going to try to figure out where that line goes in the back?
Yes, and Pat is actually bringing that map up for us to look at right now so that we can have a visual. Matt, he's having trouble.
Ah, he'll get it. Leave him alone.
I don't have, this is my personal laptop. I don't have the zoning map, Paul.
All right, I'm sorry. And I'm having some computer problems with my laptop tonight as well. So what my intent would be is to only allow one parcel deep. So if a lot fronts on Route 1 right now, in between Moore Street Extension, the new Park Place, and Vanderbilt Ave, then they could use those properties for open lot storage. But anything behind that, we would draw the line and say that's the interior of Vanderbilt Park, and that use wouldn't be allowed.
Mr. Chairman, I just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
For the planner. Paul, let's hypothetical here that we come to an agreement, and this is the way we want to go as a board. Where the cars are being parked right now, I think it's Morgan Drive, whatever.
Carnegie.
The current lot down there we have. Okay, now we've given him an extension, but that, I mean, that would be at that point, we would not be able to give him any more extensions, correct? Or would he be all done? Or would that still be able to be extended, or because he's there now?
They've submitted a special permit application to make that lot permanent, or to allow them for longer than the temporary 1 or 2 year periods of time that the board has granted since 2013. We have a public hearing coming up on that, is it, Pat, is it December 7th or the following meeting?
For Carnegie Row,
Yeah.
it's the 7th.
So at our next meeting, the board is going to be entertaining that special permit application. And we've looked at it as like a continuance or an extension, permanent extension, not a new special permit application, since the use is currently existing already and it is still currently allowed by that special permit. So the board will need to address that particular project at our next meeting and decide what you want to do with it. But if you were to allow it and let them continue that use, and we go forward with the approach that we're discussing tonight, that would remain the only open lot storage lot in Vanderbilt. And, you know, depending on market conditions, we hope that sooner or later, somebody would want to build a building on that property, and it would be a good business decision for the owner to close the storage lot and build a building. But, you know, we don't have a crystal ball of knowing when and if that will ever happen.
Mr. Sheehan,
Paul, their term, doesn't it end on like December 1st of this year? Didn't we just give them one more year?
I think the board gave them 2 years, and I think that the extension, it's usually like right before the holidays. So we'll go back and check the dates, but they are in good standing now. They did apply about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you know, we'll decide what to do with that next week, I guess.
Weren't they,
Mr. Sheehan,
weren't they supposed to do certain things with the landscaping? And they were,
Yes.
and they have not taken any of those steps as far as I know, unless you can tell me differently.
So they submitted a landscape plan for my review a month or two ago. Initially, the plan didn't have enough detail, and I pushed it back, and they came back with a new landscape plan that shows a more robust landscape planting schedule along the road. And so it is their intent to present that plan and seek approval.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Sheehan,
as I recall, they were supposed to come to us sometime in the spring with that plan, and then they were supposed to implement it by September.
that was a year ago this spring.
Yes. I think it was this past spring, because it was a year ago that we did it, and they were supposed to come back to us with a plan, and so that it would give us enough time to say that's okay, and give them enough time to execute that plan.
That is how I remember it. And they did not come back in the spring. And when they contacted Pat and I, you know, they kind of said, well, we forgot about this or dropped the ball, and they wanted to move forward. So I agree with the way you recall it. Yeah.
Mr. Paczkowski, did you want to add something?
No, Joe's absolutely correct. They were supposed to come back to us in May or June with the plan. We were gonna take some time to review the plan, give them the okay, and that way they would have, I think up to September, they were gonna have the fall planting season to implement it. And, you know, Matt, I think those were Matt Smith, Norwood Engineering. That was the discussion at that meeting, and that was the plan. You know, it's always that lot, you know, when we first approved that lot down there, I don't want to get on talking about that lot because that's not on the agenda tonight, but it took 5 years before we could get, you know, half a dozen trees planted down there in the sidewalk. You know, I mean, it's always something down there.
And that was actually just by chance. Debbie Homewood ran into the owner's assistant, and she mentioned this to her, and her dismay that they never planted the trees that they had agreed to. And the owner's assistant took care of that and got those trees planted.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not on the agenda tonight, so I won't hop on it.
We will provide the board with the minutes of that meeting a year ago and a copy of whatever decision that we wrote for them, so that you will be able to refresh your memory with the background. But I think we're all remembering it the same way.
Thank you very much. Okay, that takes care of the items on the agenda. And we're not doing too bad time-wise. And, Paul, you want to take it into department updates and other business?
I believe the last agenda item that we had was to
Oh, I'm
discuss
sorry.
the Associate Planning Board interviews that we had at the last meeting. The board interviewed some candidates and wanted to have some time to think about it. So that's the next agenda item for the board.
Thank you, Paul. My mistake. Okay. Does everybody have their interview notes and the resumes of the individuals? And anybody want to start a conversation?
I'll start, Mr. Chairman, if you
Yeah,
want me to start the conversation.
Thank
First of all, I thought all three were very good, and I saw that we got another resume that Mr. Deadline from a Derek Mason, an architect, and also very impressive. And again, thanks to everybody who's, trying to be social member. I think it's great. Are you looking for a name, Mr. Chairman, tonight that stuck out in my mind?
yes,
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna give the number one star to Mr. Blagden, and I if I'm mispronouncing his name. I thought he really was really sharp and on the ball, and the other were too, but something about this gentleman stuck out with me, that he would really be a pretty good asset and another voice. And I liked him a lot. I liked the others too. And I just make the other comment on the two people that were architects. If we ever will go forward, and I think we should, maybe under the direction of the town planner, the review design board, these architects would really be of value, serving the town in maybe on that type of a board. And I think after the first of the year, we might look into that. But I thought that Mr. Blagden, he would be my first star. Thank you.
thank you. And getting to that design review, that's a point that I'd gone through my mind as well. And to that point, I'm not gloating here, but the Dedham Square. Have you been into Dedham Square lately? Right there in the KSC building, you see the awnings, well, nice green awnings, and some rock and roll place has gone in there, and they've got a thing that just absolutely obliterates the frontage on the building. And I just wonder how it got by the planning group in the town of Dedham. But that's just an aside. Okay. Somebody, Mr. Sheehan, sir.
Oh, I just want to say, I think that Derek Mason, the architect, I think Ernie, we already had his resume before. He was the third candidate.
Yes.
And I think you were talking about architects in the duplicate. I think he was the only one. Is that?
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I got the name wrong. The one that we got in the packet, the one that I got the names mixed up. I apologize.
You can't get it by Joe Sheehan.
I liked all three also. I did like the architect just because I thought he'd have an interesting viewpoint on what we do, and it was just something different, and I thought it would be helpful. So I did like him also. I liked all of them, to tell you the truth. We can do no wrong picking any one of them.
Thank you. Mr. Bamber?
I also thought we had 3 very good applications there. And it's great to see people express interest in the town and such a good board. You know, it's really hard to make a decision. It really is. But if I had a gun to my head, I would say Derek Mason with his experience in some urban planning and with his architecture experience. I think that's something that we could benefit from by mixing into our group here.
Thank you, Rob. Mr. Hatchie?
There's a pattern following here. I distinctly remember all 3 candidates, and I will echo the sentiment that I thought that they were all really good. It's nice to see people come out, and they all were bringing different things to the table. I distinctly remember Mr. Mason having spoken of his experience dealing with a mixed-use development in London, being an architect, and I think I did actually ask him what his thoughts were about a design. Well, being that Norwood doesn't currently have a design committee or such a feature, if his skills would bring something to the table there in his response. So if I were to have to choose one, Mr. Mason would get my vote.
Thank you. And now my voice in the pile here, if you will. I did like Mr. Mason's comments, especially in the area of a master plan. And I'll tell you, my experience with master plans, you say, well, we're almost completely developed here in town. And, you know, I dealt with that at the university. And it was amazing when they come back with the master plan. And there was so much more we could do with what we had. And I think that's something we got to think about. And that's something we should move forward with. But I'll tell you, my preference is Mr. Blagden. And that's who I would give my vote to. His experience, real life practical experience, and dealing it with an entity like the MBTA, I think that has a lot of value to the board. Okay. So how do we want to go? Mr. Halkiotis, do you have anything you would like to say about a potential associate member?
No, I think the board's on track, so I will leave that to the board.
Thank you. Okay. If I read this correctly, we have 2 for Mr. Mason, 2 for Mr. Blagden, and 1 for, or is that 3? I'm sorry. 3 and 2?
Yes.
3 for Blagden or 3 for Mason?
I believe it was 3 for Mason.
Okay. Do we want to make it unanimous? Or do we want to do another round?
Mr. Chairman, I'll, you know, we can't go wrong, so to make it unanimous, I will also endorse Mr. Mason.
As will I. Now we just have to convince him to take the job and find out how boring it really is. Mr. Mason, are you out there?
Do we need a motion and a vote, or are we
I
fine?
just wanted to see if he was online with us. Okay. I think we should get a motion and then we'll take a vote.
I make a motion that we select Derek Mason as the associate member.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous for the roll. Mr. Bamber,
Aye.
Mr. Patrickowski,
Aye.
Mr. Sheehan,
Aye.
Mr. Hatchie,
Aye.
and the chairman is an aye, 5-0. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Mason. Paul, do we have anything on that open meeting agenda for department updates and
Pat and
other
I
business?
Pat and I can provide a couple of updates on things that we've been working on. As the board knows, the special town meeting took place on November 12th. There were 3 budget articles that were approved in about an hour and a half's time. And the meeting was closed without opening the warrant for the special town meeting with the zoning articles. So we await the selectmen's decision on when to call a special town meeting. Under state law, if we have held our public hearings on the zoning amendments, those hearings are valid for 6 months before we would have to re-advertise. So we believe that we'll be well within that time frame, and will not need to hold any additional or have any rehearings on our zoning articles unless we want to, or unless there's some major change to the article. I am going to try to reach out to the hospital officials and talk to them about the medical services overlay district bylaw and get some feedback from them. And we're hoping that it will meet their needs and satisfy them. Because we believe the special town meeting that'll be called in January or February will most likely be a virtual meeting. What we are interested in doing, and Pat and I are going to actually start working on this tomorrow, is instead of me doing a live PowerPoint presentation at the meeting, we are going to prepare some videos. And these videos will put images on the screen with me or Pat or both of us talking about the bylaw amendments. It'll be just a video presentation. And then when the presentation's over, we'll be able to answer any questions. We feel that this is kind of the next generation in doing town meeting presentations. Tony Mizuko has encouraged us to move forward with this. And so we're going to start doing that. And we think it'll be a good approach. And this will be our first time out with that, and we'll see how it goes. I have some bad news, and that is that the Mass Works grant application that we submitted in late August, we did not receive the grant. It was a grant from Mass Development, and the grant awards were announced, I think, at the end of last week, and we were not on the list. We have a question out there to find out more information about why we didn't make the cut. But that grant was supposed to help pay for the cost of signalizing the intersection of Planningfield Road and Route 1A. We do still have a commitment from Alexandria, the company that owns the real estate where Moderna is located. Campanelli has, helped to coordinate that with Alexandria, and they have committed to pay for the cost of signalizing that intersection. This was based on permit requirements from the planning board and from MassDOT requiring Campanelli to signalize that intersection.
Paul, not to interrupt, but to your point, I saw a survey crew out there for 2 days last week doing that intersection.
Yeah,
Excuse
VHB has started working on it. And that, I believe that's what the crew was doing, survey work in connection with the design of the intersection. So we're disappointed that we didn't get that grant, and hopefully I'll have some feedback for you on what happened. We continue to kind of evaluate some new grant opportunities and to work on working out some of our current grants that we have. And I'll let Pat brief you, give you an update on the status of the Parklet grant, the Shared Streets grant that he's working on.
Yep. So that Shared Streets grant, I mentioned that a few times. Something that we had awarded to us from the DOT back in July. Through that grant, we wanted to pursue doing something along the lines with parklets, which are basically extensions of the sidewalk or street decks, if you want to call them that. We're wrapping that up now. We were able to purchase two 20 by 8 foot parklets, as well as implement 2 permanent pocket parks, if you want to call them that. So one of them is at the corner of East Hoyle and Washington. If you've driven by there, that project's ongoing. So we're working with Mark Ryan, Andy Murphy, Paul, myself. I got my cat in the background doing
Equal time.
So yeah, so that project is ongoing. We had some stamped concrete poured, some landscaping work going on. There's going to be elements there for seating, for a couple tables. One will be ADA accessible, and that's a really cool project. I think when it's all said and done, especially at that corner where you have that new the re-siding of the yellow building with the two triple deckers on East Hoyle that are getting that were re-sided, and a few new apartments nearby, or townhouses nearby, I should say. It really is kind of what you think about when it's a mixed use corner. You have a mix of residential and commercial. You have that outdoor element. So I think when it's all said and done, that'll be a really cool little park. An additional location that is ongoing, which will probably take place or probably be implemented in early 2021, is on Washington Street at the corner of Bond and Winter. There's basically a similar situation to East Hoyle. The right of way extends, and so there's there's 2 benches out there now. There's a little memorial out there, but we're thinking of trying to implement something similar in that location as well. So that's ongoing, and we'll probably see that in 2021. The temporary street decks, which are more or less, by temporary, I mean that they're seasonal. We can pick them up, we can move them, we can bring them in new locations, but these are very high quality seasonal outdoor park lits, if you want to call them that. We were able to install one just to kind of see how it looks, to see to kind of get it out there at least for 2020, just for a little bit in South Norwood, in front of 1101, 1105 Washington Street. If you drive by there, there's a bunch of barrels out there right now, but we'll clean that up and see if we get some tables out there at least for a few weeks into the winter. So there's only one of those out there right now. We'll probably we'll wait till the spring in order to construct the second one. Either put that in South Norwood or find another location. And so we may have some additional funds, and we're still working with our working group to determine where those will go. So like I said, that project is it's wrapping up. We'll hopefully see it completed in early 2021. In addition to that, both Paul and myself have been involved with trying to kind of plan for a few grants at the end of the year. One is doing a second round of the Shared Streets grant. As we get ready for the winter, we're trying to think of ways that we can kind of safely encourage pedestrians to frequent our downtown. So we're working on a project, with ourselves, DPW Commissioner Mark Ryan, Town Manager Tony Rizzuto, and maybe trying to implement a second Shared Street grant for the winter. The details of which we're still trying to figure out, but I think we have a pretty good shot of getting some additional money to try to do some sort of outdoor element that can be utilized during the winter on a temporary basis, I should say. And we're also working on we're thinking about doing what's called a community connections grant. So the Metropolitan Planning Organization is kind of similar to MAPC, but they're a different planning quasi-public group. They have a program called Community Connections, and this kind of is similar to Shared Streets in the way where you can try to implement pilot programs such as a shuttle service, maybe something to do with digital, what they call e-link signs, like digital signs that you could monitor where a bus is in real time if you're using the bus service, or you could maybe think of doing a pilot street bike program or something like that. Paul and myself, we met with Carrie McCarthy today from Council on Aging. We've had a conversation with Ted Mulvihill, the Veterans Agent. And so we're looking into maybe doing something that is a pilot shuttle program or some pilot non-emergency transportation program. And so we'll probably work between ourselves as well as with people at the Metropolitan Planning Organization before submitting a grant for mid-December. So that's kind of where we are right now. So we're wrapping up one grant, and we got two that we're hoping to apply for probably before the end of the calendar year to bring us into early 2021. It's kind of where we are so far. There are a few other grants. We'll probably have a conversation tomorrow that are more trail related. And so these are kind of also kind of in the background. We're trying to get a few things working that hopefully between now and the end of February, we should have hopefully a few more grants sent out.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Pat. So, yep, we are meeting with Tony and with Holly Jones, our new conservation agent / environmental planner. There are two different conservation related grant opportunities that we're looking at, and one idea is to have a feasibility study to look at building some additional walking trails off of University Ave in that conservation area there, and the Walker property that's a town purchase. So we'll talk to Tony and get some feedback, and we will end up applying for at least one of these conservation related grants to create some more open space and/or trails on our existing open space. There's one more thing that I wanted to update the board on, and it's timely. As you know, our local businesses have really been struggling during the pandemic, and we've already lost some businesses so far from the pandemic. And with winter setting in and the pandemic appearing to get worse, and the possibility of additional restrictions being placed by the governor on activities, we have some legitimate concerns that some of our local businesses are really suffering and may not survive the winter. So we've been in touch with the Friends of Norwood Center, and we are supporting their effort to do a shop local, shop small week. And what the town has done to kind of join with them in their effort to encourage people to shop local and shop small is the town had Norwood Day buttons printed for next year. And we're encouraging people to buy those Norwood Day buttons, and those will get them into Norwood Day next year. And they will also get them, Pat, some discounts. What?
Just to clarify, so no, the initiative that Friends of Norwood Center is doing is called This Fall Shop Small. It's been a big push on their social media. The town has wanted to try to obviously prop up that initiative. And at the same time, kind of end November with a Norwood Day 2020, if you will, a kind of an initiative on Small Business Saturday, make it kind of like a shop small weekend where we want to encourage people to to go to their the local restaurants, go to local retail, wear your Norwood gear, go out and about, take pictures, and really try to close out November going into the holiday season with, a big push to frequent our local businesses and our small businesses, all of which are, obviously are hurting and are probably, heading into still some gray area, even though I feel like there's positive news on the horizon with some vaccines and everything like that. It still is going to be a rough winter, here and abroad. So our big push is, obviously, this coming weekend, think about Black Friday, Small Business Saturday. This is kind of our little spin on it to really try to, to think like, even if you're not hungry, go get a gift card. Just really try to make the effort to go to the places that, that we really care about and show your support. So that's just definitely our big push for this coming weekend, but something to take all the way into, the holiday season and into the winter, just to make sure we really focus on our small businesses.
So we
Thank you.
encourage the board to participate and anyone watching to go out and support our local businesses. If you're concerned about going out and shopping, as Pat said, you can always buy a gift certificate. Give somebody a gift certificate to your favorite restaurant for Christmas. And this way we help them now when they need the help, so that we'll support them through the winter.
Yeah. And the one last thing, Paul mentioned the buttons. So we're hopeful that we can get these kind of Norwood Day 2021 buttons in before Thanksgiving. And the idea behind that is that because this weekend we're treating Saturday kind of as your Norwood Day 2020, we're hopefully to get these kind of buttons out to businesses within our downtown, as well as retain some in house. And the idea is that, if you frequent a business and they're one of the businesses giving out buttons, then hey, you get your free pass to Norwood Day 2021. But also, I don't know, I'm not a social media person that much, but if you got a Twitter, you got Instagram, whatever, and you want to do kind of hashtag Norwood Day 2020, it's kind of, we'll probably reach out to you and see about connecting you with a Norwood Day button so that you can have your free pass to Norwood Day 2021 for next year. So that was the initiative of the button. Just try to encourage people that, we want to go out there and shop local no matter what, but just a little bit of extra encouragement. If you do so and you post a picture about it through your social media, we're going to try to contact you and get you a free pass to Norwood Day 2021. So,
Patrick, is the price on that $5 each still? On the
I
buttons?
believe if you bought it regular, but I think this is just our way of giving it to you for free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If it's
That's
not, yes, Paul.
That's all the updates that I have. I want to wish you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Yeah, quick question, Paul. Have you heard anything about what's going on at the hospital?
I
I
have
see
not,
they start taking down those vents.
I haven't received any information recently on the status of the hospital.
Mr. Paczykowski.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Paul, real quick, going back to Route 1A, Planning Field, the lights there. They're paying for not getting that grant. Correct me if I'm wrong, has no effect on us on Campanelli paying for those lights, correct?
Well, Campanelli's required to by MassDOT and by conditions of approval from the planning board. They did say that they were going to honor their commitment, but through the new owner, Alexandria. It's a $1.8 million job, Ernie, and it will remain to be seen whether or not all of these commitments are honored. We did continue that hearing to January, and we will meet again with Campanelli at that time and find out what they have to say.
Yeah, I'd say we get that check and put it in escrow. And, but, so,
Merry
but,
Christmas.
but not getting that works grant doesn't affect that intersection, correct?
It shouldn't, but I can't guarantee that because of the resistance from Campanelli to honor those permit requirements. I
Well,
believe the state is gonna keep their feet to the fire to require them to do that. But
Good.
I'm not 100% certain what the outcome will be at this point.
and my second, I drove through downtown the other day. Did I see a for lease sign on, what used to be the Apollo? It became a church. It looks like, is the church gone? I thought I saw a big for lease sign in the window there. Does that, anybody know that? Gene, maybe you know that.
I don't know.
What church, Ernie?
You know, it used to be the Apollo across from the where
Town
the old
Square.
Apollo restaurant was?
It's the Gray Church near the Common Cafe block.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
one.
that?
I
haven't
thought I
heard
saw a
anything,
big for lease sign, so I don't know if they're gone or,
I think that's for hall rentals.
oh, maybe.
Yeah,
We'll
I
check.
haven't heard anything, but we could reach out to some
I'll
of
just
our
take another
contacts.
look. I was driving by and I should keep my eyes on the road instead of looking over at the building.
Okay, anything else? That being said, anybody care to make a motion to end this evening's meeting? Oh, wait a second. Did we end up taking that vote for the associate member?
Yes,
A vote to close this evening's meeting.
so moved.
Motion, and motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, for the roll, Mr. Bamber,
Aye.
Mr. Paczkowski,
Aye.
Mr. Sheehan,
Aye.
Mr. Hatchie,
Aye.
and the chairman's an aye. Happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Dolly.